See that everyone is refreshed after your tea, coffee, secret alcohol that you may have shipped in. All right, now we can start. I don't know if you guys realize, I just effectively wasted 8 seconds of your time. Was anyone counting? I was. Why did I waste 8 seconds of your time? Because 8 seconds is generally thought of as the average attention span of anyone on their mobile phone. So welcome to the attention economy. I will try and leave you with 3 things that I have learned through a lot of trial, error, some successes, many failures. 3 theories that I think could help all of you as you look to build a compelling content strategy, framework, process, and execution roadmap in an age of information overdose. Do you know at any point of time how many sort of messages are bombarding you? Any idea? Any guesses? I thought the tea would have kind of done you good, guys. I'll try and be as entertaining as possible, but I need help. Okay, the answer is no one knows. At some point of time, they said it's 4 million messages per second. I imagine that if you look at your phone at any point of time, if you put your phone on lock screen, you'd have at least 7 to 8 notifications the minute you look at your phone after 10 minutes, if I'm not wrong, right? So you have your email, your work email, your personal email, cat videos, TikTok memes, I don't know what else, reels, something that you want to look at, something you want to read, an AI course you're doing, just so much. Now think about your consumer. Your consumer is you. And he, she, they are facing the same crisis of attention. So today I'll try and talk about attention instead of impressions or views, because I know it's great to talk about impressions or views, and God knows I've chased CPM and CPC and kind of still do at some points of time because that's the fashionable metric to chase. But I would like to leave you with just 3 thoughts because, again, the human mind can only take 3 thoughts after coffee. And kind of just hopefully you'll be able to put some of those into practice and not make the expensive mistakes that I have through my career. Another caveat is that I won't be talking a whole lot of science. I will be talking 1-bit science and 2-bit art. Because when it comes to compelling content, let me lay it out for you. I've spent 7 years at Netflix, 5 years as a content producer. So the real magic of content is when you know how to make good content. So I'll give you 3 frameworks of how to make good content. You could choose to follow all 3 frameworks, or you could choose to not follow any framework and build a kick-ass piece of content, and it would still work. Because it has a great insight, it has great strategic clarity, and it has this one magical thing called human emotion. So I'll talk you through 2 of those, and 1-bit science, which is very, very important for all of us, most of us, if you're marketeers or if you're content providers or vendors or platforms especially, because it's very important. So I'm not saying the science isn't important. I'm in a company where we look at the science every single day, every single hour of every day. Please, let's promise to marry the art with the science. Terrible content with great deployment got no brand nowhere. So we will talk about the art of making great content as well. Let's hope we have figured out how to work this. Great. So these are the 3 things I want to talk to you about. The first bit is science. I will talk to you about how to optimize for attention quality and not quantity. Oh my God. How are we going to justify our existence? Someone in office asked me the other day, why is the CPM so high? I said, let's talk after a drink. Mainly sparkling water in my case, but I did explain to her why it is, because I was looking to hone in on an audience and not waste my money. When you try and do that, we all know what happens. So what am I going to talk about? Not just impressions or viewability, but attentive seconds, and what that means and how that predicts better outcomes, better than viewability or the age-old opportunity to see metrics, which is basically impressions, right? I'm not against impressions, and I'm not an expert at that. You guys probably are. There are people sitting in the audience that I personally know that do that on a daily basis. I am offering an alternative, slightly better, more nuanced way of looking at the same problem. Now, the two parts that I'm super excited to talk to you about: telling a compelling story. There is just so many ways to tell a compelling story, and I mean, God knows we have gotten into huge debates about what's a great story, and if you're my friend, it's a pitfall that you have as my friend, because you will not go home till you finish the argument with me about what's a good story, whether that's an ad, whether that's a documentary on Netflix, whether that's a new show on Prime Video. I will end the argument with you, because my husband used to say, do you necessarily need to watch every show on Netflix as a producer? I was like, that's the bane of having watched most of those with the green screen still there in the background. Because that's what you do as a marketer. You kind of watch these shows for their marketability. So jokes apart, I will try and talk to you about proven creative principles. I love AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, action, to structure mobile video. And there are many ways to do that for video on TV, etc., that hooks fast and pays off meaningfully. It's great to hook fast. That's like having a fling, sorry. But if it doesn't pay off meaningfully, then you're going to walk out of the relationship. So we'll talk about both. And then there is a huge raging debate everywhere about, should we do snackable or should we do deeper narratives? I think that's a false argument. What I want to propose to you is a contra thought. It's snackable as an on-ramp or a lead-up to a bigger, better narrative. And I'll give you examples of brands that are actually doing it very well. I would request you to consider treating short form or snackable stories as chapter 0 that earn the right to a deeper narrative, should you be interested in telling a deeper narrative about your brand. Again, not all brands want to do that. They want to stay in the zone of shorter narratives. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking to build long-term equity like you know who, you got to do that. What I think of personally, and you heard it here first, while I was preparing for this, I thought, okay, it's going to be a bunch of really smart people in a room, caffeinated, right? So let me come up with something smart for this term. I usually use this at work, but I don't have a name. So I call it the ladder of depth, and I will share with you this exact kind of ladder that you need to go down to build deeper narratives from snackable to longer form narratives for your brand. All right, the first thing that I propose to you is that we will judge creative or a piece of content or both that you, creative can be anything, guys. I'm not here to tell you what a creative is. A LinkedIn post is a creative, as is a reel, as is a short, as is a TikTok video, as is a big documentary that you made. By how much quality attention it wins, quality attention, and what that attention does next. Most of us stop at saying, this reel went viral. Yeah, it didn't do anything after that. So good on you. Like when, like your reel feed is full of, I'll teach you how to go viral, and crickets after that. I'd love to go viral, but ain't hearing the bank account ringing after that, right? Or your brand account. Because views aren't value. Views are great, but views necessarily aren't value. A friend of mine, big time influencer, said to me the other day, you'd be surprised as to how some of the biggest influencers on TikTok with 50 million views can't land a single brand deal because they can't sell anything. Shocking, right? 50 million is amazing. I'd love 50 million someday, views and money. But apparently their views aren't value. So what is views and what is value? So therefore, what's our job, according to me, in my lived experience of many failures and some successes, is to earn attention fast, what we call as attentive reach, not just reach. How many times do you scroll at a thing while you're not even looking, you're listening to something, someone yelling at you, someone saying something stupid, and that gets captured as attention? That's not what we are after. Sustain it with meaningful beats and then convert or build on it, compound it into memory and action. So my submission to you, and I'll leave you with a graph, obviously, because all you data-driven people. Shift planning from impressions to attention quality to business effects, which is what I've been trying to do at my role at Amazon. We really look at saying, great, you gave me 9.1 million impressions, sales, actions, time spent on the website after that. Need to look at those as well. So I'll just, there was a very famous economist, Sir Herbert, in the 1970s. He said this, sorry if I'm getting the exact quote wrong. He said, a wealth of information, 1970s guys, has created a poverty of attention. Sir Herbert now would just run the F away. I'm not supposed to curse. He would literally be like, take me out of here, right? So I want to leave you with one thought. There are many thoughts, and this is a work report that you guys can look at. They're very, very valuable. I want to talk to you about emotions in an ad or a creative or a piece of content, especially one that goes on mobile, which we know is a very intimate platform for customers, but also one that's very fickle. It's like an intimate fling, a quick fling, right? When I was looking through that, I think most of you know that there are high attention media, mid attention media, low attention media. So there is a direct correlation between the high quality of emotion in your piece of content put on a low attention media and the same piece of content that you put on a high attention media and the kind of results it'll bear for you. So while I will talk about how to get you to high attention content, I will leave you to figure out with your very smart media planners and strategists on how to land your content at the high attention media inventory. Now, how do you decide high attention media? Again, I'm not the expert. My media strategists, friends and colleagues are, so they advise me on this. They say on any given platform, so for example, I'll just take Meta because we were building a campaign on it. Sometimes on some inventory, the feed displays or sort of gives back more attention per second than even the reels on Instagram. So now, depending on who your audience is, would you choose that? Or would you still go with reels, knowing fully well that your money's worth is better paid elsewhere? So that science, I want to leave you with a thought, not a solution, because every brand, every audience is distinct. And how they do this is obviously, let's say, for example, again, you're going to another platform, let's say our friendly YouTube, right? YouTube will advise you what their high attention media is. If you ask them what's your high reach media is, you'll get a different answer. If you ask them what your high attention media is, you'll get a different answer. I'm asking you to ask both and then decide what you want and then go after that. You will see very different results, and it's clearly written over there. A high emotion ad will only garner 3% more attentions on a low attention media, let's say reels or shorts for the purpose of this discussion, but a high emotion ad, let's say one of you made a really cool high emotion ad that made me cry. On a high attention platform, let's say YouTube masthead, will draw 18% more attention seconds. I did not say that. Really smart people at work said that. So I'm asking you to look at your media planning, your inventory planning differently. Because a lot of us, including myself till very recently, used to be like, okay, which one gives me the highest reach? Which ones give me the highest impressions? And God forbid, the one word at Amazon, which is gold, conversion. Right? So there is something in between that we are missing, which is called attentive reach or attention. Because why? Like Dr. Herbert says, we are in an attention economy. And when you're in an attention economy, the one thing that's at premium is, guess what? Thank you very much. Someone had their coffee. Okay. Number 2, I get to the art now with science thrown in over there. We will create truly compelling, high-quality content that captures immediate attention, ensures message retention, and stands out in a saturated content landscape. Okay, basically, I literally asked you to climb Mount Everest. But how? So I will give you, for your consideration, 6 of my strategic interlocking pillars that have worked in my experience. I will also tell you, potentially could adopt 4 or 5 of those, and it comes tried and tested, guys. I'm an ex-journalist. I've spent total of 5 years across some of what I think some of the most respected media channels. My managing editor once told me in my very early days, he said, this script is trash, exact words, for a new journalist, soul crushing. He said, it has neither context nor story nor emotion, nor an ending, nor a conclusion that you bring your viewer to. So kindly go back, rewrite the entire damn thing and come back. He said that to a 90% finished edit as well. So if you doubt what's on the slide, it has been through a bit of rigor. Then obviously after a couple of other stints came Netflix. So you can imagine the kind of standards at Netflix where we have scrapped whole shoots because the lighting wasn't right. Expensive mistakes, remember? One real mistake, I did a social campaign with someone, a very well-known actress with huge social media following, but it came out really distasteful. Again, not very compelling content, if you will. So I have learned, so therefore from my learnings again, guys, it might sound like I've only failed, but that's not the case. There have been some serious successes, but from the failures have stemmed things that I wouldn't do and things that I would do. So here's the first 3. Number 1 is strategic clarity. I know this sounds like, oh my God, she's saying we should put jam on bread, like, oh, this is new news. Yeah. Try seeing a good ad or a good piece of content or a good creative or good anything. It has one and only one big idea. And if you are that client, and I've hopefully not been that client who goes to your creative partners and says, this is great, but do you think you could add this as well? Good on you, because you're diluting the message, right? What is the 3 questions to ask? I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, because in kind of summarizing in half an hour or less, so many years of experience is difficult, but what is the single most important idea I want the audience to feel, remember, or act on? If you can answer that, and I'm telling you it's going to take you days of brainstorming, debating, hating each other, and then loving each other to arrive at this. Why does this message matter now and to your customers? Someone debated with me the other day on another forum, said that the message should matter to the brand, not to the consumer. I vehemently disagree. If you are making a piece of content, it should only matter to your consumer. No one cares about the brand. Please, sorry, no egos. You are replaceable. Right? So the message needs to matter to the consumer. Does it solve a problem, challenge a belief, or unlock desire? You've all heard about late Professor Clayton Christensen's model of jobs to be done. At Unilever, we were taught the very basic question that you ask before you bring a brand to life or a product to life. What is the problem you are solving? Can you articulate it? Number 3, what is the rational benefit? Number 4, what's the emotional benefit? Can't answer those 4 questions? Go back. So I'm not asking you to answer those 4 questions here, don't get me wrong, but it is very important to nail down your big idea and have strategic clarity on that. Please, my suggestion, take as much time on this as required, because that's where we get it wrong. We think we know, we don't. And then surprise, your ad is tanking, your creative's not performing, your reel's not doing very well. Number 2, structure it like a story. I promised you to talk about my favorite framework, which is AIDA. It's a very standard kind of journalistic or even content framework, right? It's attention, open with the unexpected, and I will talk to you more about it. I will give you examples as well. Interest, build emotional connection, say the problem up front, the pain point or the story. Desire, offer a possibility, maybe of a solution or an aspiration. And then action, a clear, compelling CTA. If I tell you the number of times we miss out the CTA, great video, but sorry, what action did you want me to take? You want me to feel good? I did, but next what? That's where you got my attentive reach, but you did not compound or convert on it. So remember, that's my model of structuring like a story. Please remember that I have been a broadcast journalist and a digital journalist, right? So I can't say that this is the model that works for everyone, but it's a pretty standard model. I'd say human beings want a kind of a circular structure to a story. Now, this is what I want to talk to you about. This is very new age, guys. It took me a little time to get used to this. Like, I'm like, what is even going on? And then I look at the views and the view conversions that these kind of content get. It's insane. Pattern interruption. We used to call it back in the day, break the fourth wall. Now apparently it's pattern interruption. Sounds cooler. Hook early, yeah? Use motion, sound, provocative copy, or unexpected visuals to break the scroll. I know all of you are thinking of some of your favorite content creators, either on TikTok or IG or Meta right now, who do that very effectively. I am not asking you to become students of that, but it's great to take notes every now and then and have a folder which actually you save this in, saying, this is quite inspiring. He broke the scroll. He broke my scroll. He did pattern interruption, or she told this story very well in this structure. So I want to leave you with one very tough thing to do. In my experience, I have succeeded in doing it sometimes, really failed many times. Edit your first 3 seconds with the same intensity you'd give the climax or the cliffhanger of the piece of content. Remember, I started by saying I wasted 8 seconds of your time. Gen Z doesn't even have that much patience. They have 3 seconds for you. Good luck to you. So use the open loop technique, which is ask a question, show a cliffhanger early, and provide a resolution later. Unfortunately, time won't allow us to allow me to show you examples of exactly this kind of videos. It's great, but then the pattern interruption itself needs to be interrupted after a while, because your consumers are so smart. If you do it the 5th time, they'll be like, this brand just does the same thing over and over again. So you got to keep reinventing. Okay, 4, 5, and 6, platform native. Oh my God, another debate. So we made one video for TV. Should we just cut it down for YouTube and Meta? And I'm like, let's do that to save costs, because after that, you know what will happen when you don't treat an infection and it becomes something else. This is that. So very quickly, I will tell you, make platform native content, because a great video on YouTube is not great on TikTok, definitely not great on LinkedIn. Okay, so craft for the platform. I will quickly run you through the 3 or 4 things that I think work. Vertical framing for mobile first. And again, in another forum I spoke, they said, okay, what if I need to film for various forums at once? Oh my God, just frame it horizontal and vertical at the same time. It's not that difficult. You don't have to film twice. You film in parallel. You film 2 angles. We used to do that in TV all the time, right? Captions plus on-screen text for off-sound viewing. We always say, I have a podcast too. For my podcast, I always say, build captions for off-sound viewing, but reward on-sound viewing. So I'm not asking you to put just captions, but I'm also asking you to make your text so good-looking and so aesthetically beautiful that people want to stay. Boring captions, so my best friend who I have the podcast with, she says, can you not do captions? I'll do it. So she kind of does that because she gets it. Fast cuts, minimal dead air or dead space for your Gen Z attention spans, 3 seconds, not 8. And lastly, thumbnails, titles optimized for search and click-through. For example, on YouTube, when we put our thumbnails for our podcast, very differently optimized than on Spotify, right? Make it visually sticky. Aesthetics Meta. Once I will not name the company, I joined the company, and then the boss then said, creatives don't matter. Just let it go. I was like, can I try once? I'll just show you that I think it matters. And I redesigned the ad, and I mean, I don't want to show off, but you all know what happened. Aesthetics matter. So meaning you leverage, think in scenes, not shots. We always, as journalists, we write what is called a raw script first. It is called a shoot script, raw script, shoot script, draft script. We only go to shoot after that script is written, not before that. So you must do that even for your reels and whatever you think is simple enough to. So give every scene a visual and emotional purpose. Anything that doesn't have a visual or emotional purpose, get rid of it. It's dead air. Kinetic typography to highlight sound bites. No one loves kinetic typography more than me. I used to use it in Channel News Asia, guys. So when this comes back, I'm like, yeah, the old stuff is coming back. B-roll and cutaways to prevent visual fatigue. Be careful of this one. This one actually has just come back. In between, I used to notice, and I keep studying that B-roll and cutaways are not working anymore, so just face on camera. Now, just recently, while preparing for this presentation, I realized that the algorithm is now favoring more kind of cutaways and B-rolls. And of course, color grading, motion, and pacing that matches the emotional energy. The last one, very important for marketers, especially like me, if you get questioned on a daily basis, you spent this much money on this campaign. What is the result? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to embed retention triggers, because guess why? Retention drives 70% more effective acquisition than acquisition itself. You know what I mean? I need to spend lesser on retaining customers than I need to do on acquiring them. So with that brilliant thought in mind, I need to keep people watching with narrative callbacks, wait for it moments, interactive cues, and comment below, which you see everyone doing, and end with a payoff or a twist. Even better, if you're doing a series, which is what I will talk about later, you will connect them to the next episode. Big mistake I realize that we didn't do for our podcast, where we didn't tell people what the next episode is about. So the loyalists don't come back. It's essentially new acquisition for every episode. So public confession of a mistake. Okay, we have time to play the ad. If I'd like to play just one or two very quick ads for you from one of my favorite brands. I will not name the brand. Everything I've spoken about till now, they do that. So I'd like you to watch and absorb. I'm not asking you to copy them, but I couldn't find a better example of them implementing everything that we've spoken about. If we could place the ad, please, thank you.
Kylie, Kelsey, are you drinking? I've had so many of these today. I wish they would make a huge can. That's right, Craig. Liquid Death is taking my favorite water from actual mountains and putting it in a limited edition keg. All for me and my unborn child. Drink up. Oh my God, your water just broke. Whoopsies. So next time you're pregnant, reach for an ice cold Liquid Death mountain water, or get a limited edition personal keg. Why, yes, officer, I have been drinking. For two.
So if you haven't heard about Liquid Death, which is a surprise, Liquid Death is one of the most amazing brand building stories in recent years. Guess what it is? It is water. Literally water in a can and some sparkling soda or something like that. They have turned anti-branding on its head, and they have taken that industry by storm. So what they do is they get a lot of hate too, but they basically went out and said, the genesis of this was, this guy was kind of he felt that people that drink water in parties, increasingly people like me, get a lot of hate. But imagine if you made that fashionable. How would that be? So he made that fashionable, and then he did everything that you're taught to not do. But why I wanted to show you that example, notice how he did all 6 things in one story. And I'm sure you found it entertaining. I hope you'll want to find out more about Liquid Death. They are very established, so I will obviously at a later stage give you an example of a much smaller brand. Also, they don't spend too much. They are very social driven, etc. I'd love to show one more very recent, very short example. I think they did it for the Super Bowl, and it was one of the most talked about commercials for the Super Bowl. We will just give the water a minute to cool down. Okay, the last one, guys. I know I'm running out of time, so I'll try to make it quick. I talked about how we will use short form content to prime interest and ladder to mid, long form and owned experiences. Short form is not shallow. It's upon us if we decide to make it shallow, yeah? So I want to give you just very quick some takeaways as how to treat short form, right? So I said before that treat short form as an on-ramp to deeper outcomes and stories. Use short form to prime interest and then create mid or long form CRM and owned experiences to lock attention. McDonald's does that very well. Please feel free to Google it. I've run out of time. Otherwise, I would have given you that example. Short hooks will earn you the right to long stories. Trust me, no one wants to hear long stories from a brand. But if you want to get audiences to engage with a deeper narrative with your brand, start with short hooks and earn that right. And then distinctive brand assets obviously make short content memory building, not disposable. So for example, if you have a visual mnemonic, or if you have a visual or a verbal mnemonic, or if you have a visual signature, right, or a tune, use that. Be shameless about it, use that. This is very quickly what I promised I will share. It's very easy to say, hey, use short form as a ladder to go to long form. How do we do it? So basically what I think of it is as the ladder of depth. I think of it as a content system or a depth framework, right? So there is atom, episode, arc, and IP. Some of the best brands get to IP. So if you think about it, some of your best brands like Nike, IKEA, they all have branded IPs, content IPs that they have created. There's no problem. You can stop at episode and you will still see a lot of benefits, right? So our atoms are nothing but micro entry hooks. We talked about them, short clips. Episodes are slightly longer stories, and I'll give you one last example of that in the next slide, which is serial storytelling, episodic branded content, and guess what? You can just do it even with your own camera. You don't need a production crew to do it. And you can stop there. You can keep doing it. But if you're a brand that wants to build stickiness in an age of information overload, might I suggest that you get to this, where you create a multi-part series, or if it's a music brand, a playlist, that can be then used as serialized campaigns, or like Liquid Death did. They got a lot of hate. Guess what they did with it? They turned it into a song. So, and they made a playlist out of that song. So you can't be too serious. You got to laugh at yourself, right? And then lastly, obviously, the likes of Nike create distinctive IPs like the Nike race, the Nike app, etc. When I say content, it can even be apps and physical events and on-ground events, etc. So this is the ladder of depth framework. Of course, there's a lot of nuances. We're still working on it. We're still working to build it. The last bit, and I will slide through this slide, building a community is core. None of this is possible without the community. If you are not fueling, nourishing, and building a community has two parts, creating and curating. Creating takes time, so borrow and curate from some of the best influencers in your market, in your industry. And I have noted down for you that you do not need to go big at all times. You can go to really small nano influencers with very high engagement, because remember, we are after, thank you, attentive reach, right? These guys have very high engagement. So why I want to bring it all together, the three things I told you, they all come home when you have a robust community. They become your relentless advocates. And this is a last example of a very small brand that is now obviously a $3 billion brand. But guess where it started? In the kitchen of a lady who had troubled gut. So she started making apple cider vinegar drinks, and then invented something that shockingly tasted good. And then she started marketing it. And then she said, how do I create content around it? One of the very first videos she created went viral. It was literally her and a camera. So if you're telling me you need big budgets to do this, it's a little unbelievable. You need creativity, imagination, a story, and probably a little bit of guts to see what happens, right? So Poppy is a great example. In fact, Poppy became one of the first CPG brands to actually understand TikTok. Why? Because while the likes of ... I will not name them, were still putting their TV ads on TikTok, Poppy went and put the founder up front, where she talked about gut irritation is such a here's what I have created. And then people were like, oh my God, she's like me. That moment of relatability is what kind of spurned Poppy into, started not overnight, but that one video generated 100,000 views, 100,000 in sales, not views. All right then, I think we have kind of come to the end of it. I think I end with my favorite quote, that while you strive for attention, do strive for the right attention, because the worst thing about, I mean, you can choose not to be talked about, but that's like the worst thing, right? So let's be talked about the right things. I will summarize. We want to be after attentive reach. We want to be able to get there by doing 3 things, which is telling a compelling story, busting the myth that snackable will kill your long-form narrative. No, it will build a ladder to your long-form narrative. And lastly, ground it all in a beautiful community. You don't need to create it alone. You can curate it, you can borrow it, and again, you do not need to spend a shit ton of money on big influencers. The smaller ones, the nano and the micro, also have really high engagement, laddering back to your attentive reach. Thank you so much.